Settle in for a slower way to experience history. This video pairs the quiet rhythm of a real log fire with selected urban heritage audio excerpts from Edinburgh's Queensferry. As the flames rise and fall, voices and soundscapes guide you through moments of place, memory, and meaning, allowing history to be listened to rather than watched. From the ancient ferry crossing that gave Queensferry its name, to landmarks such as the Forth rail bridge, whose great cantilevered spans transformed the Firth of Forth and the communities beside it. These short podcast sections are designed for calm, reflective listening. There is no rush, no narration overload, just heritage stories unfolding while the fire burns steadily in the background. This is history as atmosphere, ideal for evenings, reading, relaxation, or quiet reflection. Let the fire hold your attention while the story works gently in the background. These audio pieces form part of the wider PhotoART History Project, a growing collection of podcasts, films, and PhotoART history ebooks exploring urban heritage across Scotland and beyond. Full episodes are available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and other major podcast platforms.
Discover breathtaking panoramic photo art, limited edition prints capturing the heart of Manchester Castlefield and Edinburgh Queensferry. Each museum-grade print is created in exclusive small runs, paired with richly detailed history ebooks, available now on Apple Books, revealing the stories behind every landscape. View these works at the gallery next door, showcasing outstanding regional artists and curated contemporary exhibitions, or explore them through Cheshire art agencies, leaders in art placement, private commissions, and collections across the north. Own the art, own the history, own the moment. Visit thegallerynextdoor.co.uk, CheshireArtAgencies.com, and search David Lawton PhotoART on Apple Books.
Welcome to PhotoART History, Urban Heritage Stories by David Lawton. These podcasts are published in seasons, depicting the photo art history of exciting areas of cities such as Manchester Castlefield, Edinburgh Queensferry, and Porto Ribeira. These series of podcasts are available for each season, offering easy, informative listening, including constructed ballads introducing each series podcast. Full season PhotoART history ebooks are available free on Apple Books, including full audio descriptions and accompanying collated images. Port Edgar Marina, Queensferry Village. There is a place beneath the bridge where iron meets water, and time seems to pause. A quiet harbour of crossings and return, where the past lingers in salt air, timber, and tide. This is Port Edgar, and this is her story. Where the iron bridge touches the silver tide, shadows stretch across dark water. No palace stands here, no grand tower, yet its roots reach deeper than stone or steel, down into memory itself. Once a frightened prince crossed these waters. A queen walked this shoreline with kingdoms on her shoulders. Lanterns shook in the wind. A small bowl of milk waited in a doorway, an offering for whatever watched from the dark, for what had always watched. The waves bent low in understanding. Years turned, and the world changed its face. Machines roared where silence once lived. Then war arrived on a bitter wind. Grey ships pressed against the docks, steel against timber, ropes straining in frost. Beneath the bridge came orders, footsteps, whispers. 1,600 hands worked through cold and fear. Mines were lifted and lowered. Names were written into ledgers, then carried away on salt and silence. Some never returned. Still the harbour endured. When the cannons quietened, gentler sounds returned. Wind in canvas, rigging singing, timber tapping softly on water. White sails replaced iron ones. Children ran where soldiers once stood. Laughter rose where commands once echoed. Tar, rope, and warm light replaced the scent of war. Hands that built for survival began to build for beauty again. Old timbers were restored. Windows glowed amber across the tide. Warm evenings brought music and voices. A new heart beat within an old frame. And when the world grows still, a small guardian moves beneath the bridge. A flicker of gold, a quiet watcher, keeping the memories we forget. She walks where past and present meet, where echoes cross the now. She is memory. She is whisper. Leave a drop of milk when the tide is low. Let your hand touch the water. Feel history beneath your feet. Listen to the hush under the bridge, because the Forth remembers. Port Edgar breathes. Port Edgar watches. Port Edgar waits. Still she remains. Still the bridge stands. Still the water whispers. And beneath iron and sky, Port Edgar remains. A living chronicle beneath the bridges. On the southern shore of the Firth of Forth, where the red lattice of the Forth Bridge and the white cables of the Queensferry crossing frame every horizon, Port Edgar Marina occupies a narrow shelf of land that has served Scotland for 1,000 years. From the landing of an exiled prince in 1067 to the arrival of a new private owner in October 2025, the site has never been merely a harbour. It is a threshold, a fortress, a playground, and, in the half-light between tides, the undisputed territory of a flame-bright ginger cat who has watched over every chapter. The story begins with Edgar Etheling, the last Anglo-Saxon heir, who came ashore here with his sister Margaret after the Norman conquest. Margaret founded the Pilgrim's Ferry that gave the village its name, Queensferry, and, according to fishermen who still leave saucers on the capstans, a small ginger kit walked off the boat with her and never left the southern shore. The bargain was struck then. While milk is poured and respect is shown, the crossing stays safe. For 8 centuries, Port Edgar remained a modest stone pier used by herring boats, colliers, and the Queensferry Passage ferry. King George IV stumbled down a temporary gangplank here in 1822 on his theatrical progress to Hopetoun House, the great Palladian seat of the Earls of Hopetoun, 2 miles west. By the 1850s, Royal Navy guard ships lay offshore, and the pier became their landing place. Then, in the urgent summer of 1916, everything changed. The Admiralty needed a destroyer base to protect Rosyth and the Grand Fleet anchorages. In months, the inlet filled with breakwaters, concrete hardstandings, and 8 long brick and slate sheds. HMS Lochinvar was commissioned in October 1916. 40 torpedo boat destroyers berthed alongside. The sheds rang with the clang of repairs and the shouts of stokers. In the Second World War, the same sheds trained thousands of minesweeper crews who kept the North Atlantic convoys alive. From 1948 until 1975, Port Edgar was the Navy's minesweeping trials establishment. When the last white ensign came down, the Ginger Cat, known to generations of sailors as Torpedo Kate, then Ginger Kate, was seen walking the empty jetties as if taking inventory. Civilian life arrived quickly. In 1978, Lothian Regional Council opened a 300-berth marina on the site. The sheds that once stored depth charges now held lasers and wayfarers. A tiny chandlery called Boatswain's Locker opened in Shed 3. A sailing school began in Shed 6. Edinburgh Leisure ran the place until 2014, when Cara and Russell Aitken took the lease and began a decade of steady investment. New pontoons, shore power, a travel lift, and a reputation that pushed annual berth occupancy to 98%. The Forth Bridges became a UNESCO World Heritage Site in 2015, and Port Edgar found itself directly beneath one of the world's great views. In May 2025, the long leasehold was offered for sale through Savills. By October, it belonged to West Coast Capital, Sir Tom Hunter's family office, for an undisclosed 8-figure sum. The new owners pledged to keep the name, protect the listed buildings, add 50 berths, build a proper yacht club and visitor centre called The Hub, and, in a distinctly 2025 flourish, install a floating sauna. The 8 Queensferry sheds remain the beating heart. They serve 2 masters in perfect balance. Recreation belongs to the water. Edinburgh Water Sports stores kayaks, paddleboards and powerboats in sheds 2 to 4. The RYA Sailing Academy in Shed 6 teaches everyone from 8-year-olds to retired admirals. Sea Cadets, TS Queensferry, drill here twice a week and run free summer courses for local teenagers. Shed 7 hosts the big public events. The 10th Open Weekend in July 2025 drew 5,000 people for rig tying races, street food and lifeboat demonstrations. The nearby Queensferry RNLI station, Scotland's newest inshore unit, works hand in glove with the marina. Their D-class lifeboat is a frequent visitor, and joint safety days are now annual fixtures. Commerce lives in the western sheds. The boatyard operates from sheds 4 to 6, lifting, storing and repairing everything from day sailors to 50-foot ocean cruisers. The Port Edgar Chandlery began in 1980 as Boatswain's Locker, a narrow shop selling warps and anti-fouling. By the 1990s, it had added brokerage and engine servicing. In 2016, it rebranded as Beacon Stores, expanded into clothing and gifts, and now fills 7,000 square feet with 5,000 product lines. 40% of its customers, staff say, are tourists who simply wander in for the bridge view. Above the chandlery, in the upper story of Shed 1, sits Scott's Restaurant and Bar. Buzzworks Holdings spent £2 million in 2017 to 18 converting a derelict loft into 200 nautical chic seats, with a terrace that looks straight up the Forth to all 3 bridges. It opened in September 2018, won design awards, weathered COVID with heated pods, and in 2025 still serves the best seafood within 20 miles. The ground floor of the same shed, empty since a previous pub closed in 2023, will reopen in 2026 as the Anchorage, a simpler alehouse. Hopetoun House watches over everything from its hill like a benevolent landlord. The Hopes lent their name to a wartime combined operations base here. Every midsummer, the estate still sets out a silver dish of cream on the west terrace. By morning, it is empty. And the ginger cat? She is the constant. Riveters on the Forth Bridge in 1889 felt her warmth in the iron during storms. Night shift engineers on the old road bridge in 2015 felt invisible paws pin them to the railings in 90-knot gusts. On the Queensferry crossing, the infrared cameras register a recurring heat signature the size of a cat, moving at walking pace from tower to mid-span and back. In November 2025, the crane driver lifting the first steel for the hub looked up and saw her balanced on the hook, tail curled, amber eyes reflecting the sunrise. When the crew reached the ground, there was only one warm ginger hair on the shackle. No one has ever taken a clear photograph, but the rules are well known. Tie a good bowline, leave a saucer of milk with a drop of whiskey in it. Slow down when the fog drops suddenly around the bridges. And if you feel the car nudged gently back into lane on a midnight crossing, or see a flare of copper light ahead of the lifeboat, touch your forelock and say thank you. The Forth is still hers. Port Edgar is still hers. As long as the milk is poured and the knots are sound, the bridges will stand, the boats will come home, and the ginger cat will walk the pontoons long after the last human light has gone out. Adjacent to Port Edgar can be found Queensferry village, the ancient crossing and its timeless harbour. Beneath the three great bridges that span the Firth of Forth, like the threads of fate woven by some ancient weaver, lies a village that has always been more than stone and salt water. South Queensferry, or simply Queensferry to those who know her best, clings to the southern shore with the stubborn grace of a limpet, its cobbled high street winding like a river from the old harbour rocks to the shadow of Dalmeny. This is no mere suburb of Edinburgh, 8 miles to the east. It is a threshold between worlds, the narrowest point of the Forth, where pilgrims once crossed on faith and ferries, where kings disembarked in pomp, and where, in the mist-shrouded dawns, a flame-bright ginger cat has walked the piers since the 11th century, her amber eyes warding off storms and strangers alike. The village's original small harbour, little more than a natural inlet at the Binks, a jagged outcrop of rock, has evolved from a medieval landing to a leisure haven, but its spirit remains tied to the tides. And just to the west, Port Edgar Marina, once a naval outpost, now a bustling extension of Queensferry's maritime soul, reminds us that harbours here are not isolated but intertwined, each echoing the other's history under the cat's watchful gaze. The roots of Queensferry reach deep into Scotland's shadowed past, long before names were fixed or ferries formalised. Archaeological whispers suggest human presence here from the Mesolithic era, around 10,000 years ago, when hunter-gatherers roamed the Forth's estuaries, leaving flint tools in the mudflats near what would become Dalmeny. By Roman times, around 79 AD, when Agricola's legions pushed north, the area may have served as a minor crossing, though no forts marked it like Cramond to the east. The Romans departed by 407 AD, leaving faint roads and place names, but the Forth's narrows, Cas Caolas in Gaelic, meaning sudden strait, remained a natural gateway. Early Christian sites dotted the landscape. Dalmeny Kirk, with its Norman phases dating to the 11th century, hints at 8th century ecclesiastical roots, while Abercorn's old parish church echoes Pictish influences. Into this liminal space came Edgar Atheling in 1067, the uncrowned Anglo-Saxon king fleeing William the Conqueror. With him was his sister Margaret, whose storm-tossed ship found shelter at the Binks. Legend says a small ginger kit leapt from the vessel first, scouting the rocks with a purr that calmed the waves. Margaret married King Malcolm III at Dunfermline in 1071, and in gratitude she established the Queensferry, Passagium Reginae, for pilgrims travelling to the abbey. Free passage for the devout, with dwellings on both shores, turned the hamlet into a hub. By her death in 1093, the ferry was thriving, and the cat, now Queensferry's guardian, had claimed the southern pier as her domain, her paw prints said to appear in the wet sand after gales, steadying boats like invisible bowlines. Medieval Queensferry grew around this sacred crossing. The 12th century saw the Binks formalised as a harbour, with simple timber jetties for fishing skiffs and pilgrim barges. Dundas Keep, a 12th century tower, rose nearby, its licence renewed in 1416 by the Dundas family, who founded the Carmelite Priory in 1440–41. This monastic house, now St Mary's Episcopal Church, anchored the village's spiritual life, its vaults and gardens spilling down to the shore. The High Street took shape, a ridge of fieldstone houses with thatched roofs and lumhead weathering to fend off the Forth's rains. By the 14th century, Queensferry was a burr of regality under Dunfermline Abbey, sharing duties with Kirkcaldy and Musselburgh. A 1364 charter from David II granted a weekly market and annual fair, swelling the population with traders. The harbour, still rudimentary, handled wool, salt and ale, but storms ravaged it. Timber piers splintered in 1690 to 1693, only to be rebuilt. The ginger cat's lore deepened. Fishermen claimed she curled on capstans during tempests, her warmth melting ice from rigging, ensuring herring fleets returned heavy laden. The 17th century brought prosperity and peril. Elevated to royal burr in 1627 by Charles I, Queensferry became a free port, its harbour buzzing with European trade. Coal, wool and hides outbound, wine, silk, linen and timber inbound from Scandinavia and the Baltic. Merchants built substantial homes like Black Castle, 1626, and Plewlands House, 17th century, their vaults filled with goods. Soap making, Scotland's first, candle production and linen weaving flourished, employing locals amid the burr's guild system. In 1636, the Old Kirk, now Queensferry Parish Church, separated from Dalmeny, its steeple a landmark for sailors. But turmoil shadowed success. The National Covenant of 1638 divided the nation, with Queensferry signing amid musket shortages. Covenanter conflicts spilled along the Forth in 1644 to 1646, and Minister Ephraim Melville's witch hunts executed 8 women in the 1650s. The Queensferry Paper of 1680, a radical manifesto found after Donald Cargill's escape, cemented the village's role in Scotland's religious strife. Harbour storms persisted. 1747 to 1755, gales destroyed piers, and 1780, repairs failed in 1789's fury. Yet trade endured, with the cat's myth evolving. She rolled cannonballs like yarn during Jacobite threats, bounding from harbour to Hopeton House, built 1699 to 1703, expanded 1726 to 1740 by William Adam, to ward off sieges. The 18th and early 19th centuries saw Queensferry as a coaching stop. Stagecoaches halted at Hawes Inn, immortalised in Stevenson's Kidnapped, ferrying passengers across the Forth. The High Street gained 12 oil lamps in 1785, illuminating inns and shops. Herring fishing boomed from 1792, with winter catches cured on the Cross Pier. Major harbour rebuilds began in 1817. North Wall, new entrance, creating the layout seen today. Industrial stirrings included distilling and shale oil extraction from the 1850s, with workers' rows at the glebe. The railway arrived in 1866, extending from Ratho to Dalmeny, Hawes and Port Edgar, tying the village's original harbour to its western neighbour. Port Edgar, then a modest inlet, gained relevance as an extension of Queensferry's maritime reach, handling overflow trade. The Forth Rail Bridge's construction, 1883 to 1890, transformed everything. 5,000 workers flooded the village, boosting pubs and shops. The ginger cat paced the girders, her copper shadow warming rivets in storms. 4 ember prints burned into the steel to hold it firm. Victorian Queensferry blended grit and grandeur. The bridge opened in 1890, its cantilever span a wonder. But the ferry persisted, managed by an 1810 Board of Trustees. Population swelled, 1,500 by mid-century, with sanitation lagging. Middens lingered into the 1800s. Estates like Dalmeny House, home to Earls of Rosebery, and Dundas Castle overlooked the village, their lords influencing trade. Shale oil peaked in the 1920s, bings scarring the landscape. But Scottish Oils Company shaped early global petroleum, linking to British Petroleum's roots. The harbour shifted from commerce to leisure, with wooden steamer piers for Galloway excursions dismantled in 1919 amid post-war depression. World War I militarised the Forth. Port Edgar, adjacent to Queensferry's harbour, became HMS Columbine, a destroyer base for the Grand Fleet. Queensferry saw naval influx. Sailors packed the Rio Cinema, and in November 1918, the German High Seas Fleet surrendered in the Firth. The ginger cat grew to lioness size in lore, her eyes deterring zeppelins over Rosyth. Interwar years brought motor traffic, ferries adapted for vehicles. Housing expanded in the 1930s and 1950s, Hewlett-Packard factory arriving in 1966. The Forth Road Bridge ended the ferry era upon opening, its suspension towers lit like beacons. Queensferry adapted. The harbour pier, opposite Hawes Inn, now hosted tourist boats to Inchcombe Abbey. The 20th century's close and 21st dawn saw Queensferry as a commuter haven, population reaching 10,216 by 2022. Administered by Edinburgh Council since 1996, it blends heritage with modernity. Traditions thrive. The ferry fare, 12th century roots, modern from the 1930s, crowns a queen amid parades. The Buryman, 300-plus years, processes in burrs. The Looney Duke draws global crowds for charity, benefiting RNLI Queensferry, station at Longcraig Pier. The Queensferry crossing opened in 2017, completing the triple span. Port Edgar's relevance endures. Its World War I base evolved into a 1978 marina, now under West Coast Capital 2025, with 320 berths, echoing Queensferry's original harbour's leisure shift. The village's High Street, an outstanding conservation area, preserves Black Castle, Tolbooth, 17th century, 720 clock, and Priory Church. Modern touches: Dakota Hotel, 2007, Ferry Brewery's bridge-named ales. The harbour, once trade's artery, now cradles yachts and seals. Hawes Pier offers Forth cruises. The Binks hosts eco-tours. Ties to Port Edgar, shared naval history, joint events like open weekends make them kin, the cat patrolling both. In 2025, as the hub rises at Port Edgar, Queensferry thrives. Named Scotland's most beautiful town, its story a tapestry of crossings, guarded by a ginger phantom whose purr still calms the Forth. The ancient foundations of Queensferry are veiled in the mists of prehistory. Mesolithic dwellers around 8000 BC left evidence in 2012 excavations during the Queensferry crossing construction, a dwelling site revealing tools and hearths. Roman legions under Agricola in 79 AD may have used the narrows for supply crossings, though no major camp existed. By 407 AD, their withdrawal left faint paths. Early Christian influences emerged. Dalmeny Kirk's Romanesque architecture, 12th century, overlays 8th century sites, while Abercorn's church ties to Pictish kings. The Forth's tides shaped life: mudflats for foraging, seals for hunting. Edgar's 1067 landing marked a pivot. Margaret's ferry, free for pilgrims, spurred growth. Hovels clustered at the Binks, storms battering timber landings. By 1093, her death sanctified the passage, pilgrims swelling the hamlet. The ginger cat's first tales. She guided Margaret's ship, her purr quelling waves, becoming the village's talisman. Produced by PhotoART History, Urban Heritage Stories, this podcast is part of a series of 12 podcasts from Season 1, Queensferry, Edinburgh. The complete Season 1 is available free for 2026 on Apple Books, with full audio and images and accompanying ballads and history over 1,000 years included in each of the 12 series, covering Rosyth Castle and Dockyards, Hopetoun House and the House of Binns, the Forth Rail Bridge, the Forth Road Bridge and the Queensferry Crossing. Search David Lawton, Queensferry, Edinburgh, available January 2026.